Hi, welcome to the.
I believe it's my introduction. Hmm. Round four. Round four.
I know.
What are we talking about tonight?
I thought we decided we're
Oh,
going
wait,
to
is
talk
this
about.
going out live now?
No, we can though. Do you want this to be the intro?
Yeah, just do it, whatever.
Yes.
What are we
This is the
talking
way.
about?
This is the way. All right. So the topic tonight: when is the right time to intervene, and when is the time to peacefully de-escalate the situation? So, speaking poetically, carry the sword sheathed. So this relates to Kyokushin in the terms. Now I don't. This is supposedly how, one of the reasons how Sosai imagined the kanji. So I'm not sure where. I'm still trying to find out where this quote came from. But apparently, Sosai Oyama chose the kanji for Kyokushinkai to resemble the samurai sword placed inside the sheath.
Yeah,
So again, I
I don't know if it's placed inside the sheath. I know it represents the sword coming
mhm,
down.
mhm.
I don't know if it's in the sheath though. I
Yeah,
haven't
that's
heard
why
that it's in the sheath before.
Yeah, that one is actually, and when I was looking it up, it's on Wikipedia under Kyokushin. So again, anybody could put anything on Wiki. So
Yeah.
I want to look into that anyway. So it's going to get a bit of my research going. But anyway, I
Yeah.
thought it was a good topic because not sure if people know or not, but Terry has Terry has a background as a doorman. So you you more than anyone would know about when to kick the piss out of somebody or de-escalate the situation. I was
good
gonna sound
topic.
nice there, but then I said screw it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good topic. And just before we get in it, I want to tell our listeners that listen, we don't rehearse these shows. We don't send each other scripts and topic notes and be like, right, let's talk about this. You make sure you ask this question, and I'll come back with. This is completely off the bat. We don't rehearse anything. We're just like, right, get it. Are we live? Let's go. Let's talk about it, and then we start.
Yeah.
The topic that you're talking about, when is the right time to do it? I think it depends on your frame of mind as well. Now, as I've gone older, I've got not only am I controversial to everyone else, I'm controversial to myself as well. Because as I've gone older, I'm questioning things that I believe. Um, we'll get into it later on, but when is the right time to hit someone? Hmm. It completely depends on your threat assessment. You need to do a threat assessment of what is going on. Say the nuts and bolts of it, right? The nuts and bolts of it is depends on your threat assessment. If you think that you're going to be hit or you're in imminent danger of a shot, you employ a preemptive strike. So I'm 99% sure he's about to throw a punch at me. Boom, I'll get a shot in first to defend myself. It's a preemptive strike. But then in a court of law, you've still got to prove that you feared for your safety.
Yeah. Which can be tough.
It's a very having gone through it all, having gone through the being arrested, being put into a cell for a night, gone and had a 7-day Crown Court trial where I'm facing a 3-year prison sentence.
Really?
Yeah, I was stood in the dock. I could have gone away for 3 years.
Wow.
And all because, again, it is that argument of defense. It was a massive melee, a big brawl of about 25 people.
What were
Started
you
off
as
in
a was this
I was
as a
doorman, yeah.
dormant? Okay.
Yeah, this was
So
a good.
you
This
weren't
was
just walking down the street and punched
no,
somebody,
no, no,
just to
no, no.
put that out there.
Just no. I've never. I'm not. I've never hit anyone that didn't deserve to be hit.
All right, so give us the background. What happened? How'd you end up there?
Well, no, just we were working in the club. There was a fight that kicked off downstairs. We started throwing people out, and we were in a basement, so we had to go up a few flights of stairs to throw people out.
Oh, wow.
So we took them up and threw them out, and then it was just one of those things. There's 5 doormen on, but it erupted everywhere. There was little pockets of fights, and as you were dealing in one here, one opened up over there, one opened up over there, and in the end, it was just
Mayhem.
anarchy. in the club, yeah. So as we were throwing people out and going back in, they were obviously following us straight back in through the doors. So we managed to get it sorted, and as we were throwing them out, we were staying on the door. Now, again, this is one of those, at the time, all my training took over, and it was like, right, this is what I trained for. This is what I'm here to do. I was in the doorway. Now, the people we threw out were attacking me in the doorway, kicking me and hitting me. And I'm
so there's no de-escalation happening there in a play because everybody's going nuts.
This was an imminent explosion. Bang!
Right,
there was no talking.
Yeah,
we went straight to a fight.
Yeah, right. So, and when you say you're, go ahead, go on.
No, I was just going to say. So I'm in the doorway, trapped, really being attacked. So I'm like, right, I need to get out of the doorway. So I went out to the doorway into the street to engage the person that's attacking me. Threw some shots, a bit messy, a bit scrappy, didn't quite catch the shots. Grabbed him in a headlock and threw him backwards. And then as I'm talking to the next person saying why he's out, he comes and blindsides me. I turn around, face off to him, bang him with a left, knock him out. Walk back towards the door. There's just fighting everywhere all around you. Walk back towards the door. Someone throws a nut at me. I kind of go with it and catch it. A nut, a headbutt.
Oh, okay.
Atama.
Weird UK people.
Someone threw a headbutt at me. I went, it didn't catch me, but I went with it. And then there's just fighting everywhere. I seen the guy who headbutted me a little bit later, and seems this has already gone through court now and has all been done. I can say, yeah, I seen him about 30 seconds later and sent a missile into him and caught him right at the base of the jaw and just ended him.
Okay, so that's what ended you in court, was the fact that you
it was all of it together, really. So yeah, in that, and this is something I speak about in my book as well, because you don't get both ends of the scale. We learn all about the fighting and hit and defend yourself. But at the end of the day, you've got to convince a jury in a court that you are justified. That's all that matters.
And you're getting so good at this. Did everybody notice how you put that plug in there just now? All in my book when it comes.
Listen, I may as well do a set of encyclopedia, because there's going to be a lot in these books.
So I guess ultimately then it was thrown out. I'm assuming, right? You're not in jail, or you didn't go to jail.
No, I didn't go to jail, but I got found guilty.
Oh, you did? So that's interesting.
What they tried to do everybody individually for assault, because we all kind of assaulted each other. I had a black eye. They all went away in an ambulance. And they said, right, everyone's going to get done for assault. But we were I was defending myself. They were defending themselves. So it came down to a fray, we call it.
Right.
And the term affray, they used to, if I can't do you and I can't do you, we'll do the two of you for a fray.
Right. Yeah.
Get everyone done for the fray.
Okay, that makes sense.
And a fray means causing a person of reasonable firmness to fear for their safety. Sure. So if someone is stood by there watching me and you fight, and they fear for their safety, we both get down for a fray. The person to speak to about that is Janine.
Yeah. Why? How so? What do you mean? Oh, yes, because she's a litigator. Barrister. Yeah. And she also has some. I was going to bring it up in the talk with her. She also. You guys have some funny slang and stuff over there. I didn't want to mention it in there, but I have some outtakes. We're going to talk about it. Where she said she fell pregnant. So,
these things happen in Wales. There's a lot of falling pregnant.
It was very cute. Like, that saying is never said here. Like,
you don't hear that there.
Really cute. All right, so back to this. So again, that should tell you.
Fast forward. Although at the time, and now I still feel I was 100% justified, because it wasn't a case of de-escalation. It was a case of we were in the battle.
But it also shows you how only as a last resort, because even though you feel you're in the right, they just threw the book at everybody, right? Yeah. So, and that could happen, right? So
it did, but certainly because it was all caught on CCTV.
Right. But for the average person who's out and about, you probably want to try
But
to
again,
de-escalate.
yeah, you de-escalate. So don't forget now, violence is the last resort. That's what we look at. So if you can de-escalate, if you can, the art of fighting without fighting, and get out of it, then fine. But as a doorman, you're paid to stay there. You're paid to be in that position to stop the fights. So when something happens with you, if you can't talk them down, the next thing is a physical response.
And you said that you had to rely on your training. So that's segues into some of the other conversations we've been having too. Which training? Your sport Kyokushin training or your other stuff, or a blend of everything? Or when you say your training, what do you mean?
The sport Kyokushin training, I mean, I stopped training for knockdown a long time ago. And I started karate when I was 11, and I became a doorman when I was 17.
Jeez, you weren't even old enough to drink in there, but you were.
I couldn't even go in the pub. I had to stay outside.
That's funny.
So it was kind of the sport training for knockdown. This how it works. So your sport training makes you strong. If you're training to fight knockdown, that's what makes you strong.
You got that foundation.
But what you have to do, you have to tweak and adapt your training so you're not punching to the body and, kick into the thighs. You're punching to the head, grabbing, clinching, and working. So the knockdown training makes you strong, and then you need to train for real fights, which is what I was doing all the time. And it starts clashing because as Miyamoto Masashi says, you can only fight the way you train.
I was just going to talk about that.
I say you can only fight the way you practice.
Yeah.
And then in my dojo, what I say you can only fight the way you train. So if you train for sport karate, punch into the chest, kick into the thighs, that is what you will fall back on. There's no good saying, oh, well, in a real fight, I would do X, Y, and Z, because your brain won't differentiate between the sport training and the realism. You'll use your go-to techniques, which you've been practicing.
Yeah, I can't remember his name now, but you would know. I think you may have trained with the guy who literally wrote the book on Doorman. And his name is
Thompson.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was.
Well, it was Jeff's book. It was Jeff's book that got me into door work.
Which is, his work is, and if anybody hasn't seen or look for Jeff Thompson, look for videos, it's pretty spectacular stuff. But I remember him talking about that too. You may think all day that you will, in a real situation, I'll do that. But when adrenaline kicks in, fight or flight kicks in, all that stuff, you just go directly to what you know.
You just go with
there is no thinking. There is no thinking. Yeah.
No, there's not. Well, there's not, but they can be inbuilt. They can be inbuilt thinking, which is what our training is for.
Mushin, no mind.
Mushin, Zanshin, but you have to train your body to react to it. The same as police, certainly American police, train to go for their weapon, and they train to block and go for their weapon and draw their weapon. Where police officers don't train for that because they don't draw their weapon, so they use a different type of training. So. And I started training for the real fights. I started training for headshots, grabbing, headbutting, clinching. And that starts to come out a little bit. And I remember when the sport knockdown karate and the real fighting karate came together, was in the tournament, one of my last tournaments. I'd fought 3 extensions. I'd had 3 extensions in each round. And I was doing a 3rd place fight off. So I'd been fighting most of the day. I'd had quite a few fights, and I was just absolutely knackered, bruised and knackered. And I didn't know I was fighting for 3rd place fight off. I was sat outside, chilling and relaxing, and they were like, "Oh, Terry Burkett to Matt," and I'm like, "No, I'm done." And they're like, "Come on, you gotta go, get on the mat." So I was on the mat and I was fighting and going through it, and I was so knackered, and I remember fighting the guy, and it was towards the end of the fight, and I kind of grabbed his sleeve, pulled him on, and hit him with a hizugeri, which caught him nicely, and he was on his way down. Now, if I'd left it at that, it could have been a questionable sort of nice win if I could have got away with it. But as he was on his way down, I followed through with a punch to the side of his head and smashed him into the mat. Because in my head, I'm like, you're not fucking getting back up. That's it. I was outside a club. I was in a real fight because that was my training that kicked in. I was so exhausted. I
Right.
seen him on his way down and it followed through instinctively for that split second. And then I was like, oh, what have I done? Oh, God. So that's when
what was the outcome of that? What was the outcome of that?
Well, I got disqualified. But to be honest, I think he should have got disqualified because he couldn't carry on. He was unconscious. Technically, I've taken that as a win.
Always look at the bright side.
Yeah. So, and I think that's where your training is going to clash a bit. If you're training for real fights and you're training for the sport fights, they're going to clash a bit. So I all my training just became about realism. You know, even in the dojo, it is defense first, self-defense first, at most. Sport comes second, knockdown comes second.
Yeah, well, I remember, I think it was Nicholas Pettis when we talked. I hope I got this right. I have a great memory, it just doesn't last long. When he was talking about, he had these visions of going to Hombu and training with Sosai and stuff. It was going to be like the Karate Kid, self-defense, wax on, wax on. Frank said it was very, very different. And Sosai's philosophy on this stuff was a little different too.
Yeah, it is. Like I said before in one of our other talks, people have a very fanciful idea of what karate is and what training is and what martial arts is. And when I was in the self-protection scene and I was going around and this back in the 90s, early 2000s, everything was very hot on the scene. And I used to say to people in the class, because some of the stuff I was teaching it's barbaric, it's very nasty, but it's very effective. And I used to say to people, would you bite someone's ear off? No, of course not. Don't be so ridiculous. You'd never bite someone's ear off? No, disgusting, never do it. What if you're I'd say like to a lady, what if you're on the floor and an 18-stone rugby player is on top of you, trying to rape you? And then he's close to you. What are you going to do then? Are you going to let him carry on? Or are you going to claw and bite and do everything you possibly can to get him off you? And this, when you change that threat, everyone is capable of doing atrocious, horrific things if they push to it.
Now you're reminding me of someone else, again from Contact Kicks, our dojo, our jiu-jitsu coach, our former jiu-jitsu coach, Coach Michael Aviato, world champion, in sport BJJ. But when he trains, and if you train, I've trained with him, he always, and he's a small guy, but he'll just ragdoll you. Any event, if he's on top of you, he's mounting you, you can't do anything, he'll start taunting you with stuff like that. What about the bad guys here? The bad guy, your kids are in the other room, and there's a guy just came in your house. What are you going to do? You're going to give up now? What are you going to do?
Yeah, and that was exactly when I was training. That was exactly when I fought someone. I pictured my children behind me. So if you get through me, you get to my children. So you don't get through me.
Yeah, it changes the. But do people switch though? Can people? Like some people, I don't know if they can or not, if they're capable of it or not.
I think I switched, but because I was exposed to that violence for a long period of time.
Oh, yeah, you started working at a door when you're 17. But for somebody who, generally the average person, you would hope they actually don't encounter a violent altercation, right?
You could live your entire life and never have a violent confrontation.
Yeah, like I grew up in a rough area where it was almost like sport. It was just the way it went down. But some people never ever see anything.
Some people. But then there's also martial artists. There's also people who are training.
That's what I'm saying.
They're like I'm an 8th dan or 6th dan, whatever.
But have never
had a real fight in their lives. And this is part of my gripe with people teaching self-defense, self-protection stuff. And it's like, but you've never had a real fight. So what you're teaching is theory.
Right.
You're teaching the theory of something. You've never experienced it. So you can't explain to that person, listen, when that adrenaline dump hits you, it's going to be like rocket fuel. Your hands are going to shake. You won't be able to speak properly. Your mouth will be tremoring. Your legs will be tremoring. They
Exactly.
can't explain that to you because they haven't been in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, personally would rather take training like that from somebody like Jeff Thompson or an ex-Navy SEAL or somebody who's,
it is someone who's been there, and it's through the best way to teach them is through experiential learning. I've done it, so I can now teach it to you. Which is kind of the point of sensei, is the one who's gone before. So someone who's done it and learned it, they can now show you.
Yeah. Now on the flip of though, de-escalation, and I'm reminded again. God, I really got to improve this memory. But there is another story for Sosai, and I know who the person was. He went to Japan, I believe in the 60s. Anyway, before my time, and had studied Budo. Like we're talking like classical Budo arts, and then had released a bunch of books on it. And his name is totally escaping me now. But if I
Where
find
was he
out,
from?
I believe he was American actually, but he might
Not
have been
Don
from
Draeger.
Yes, Don Draeger. Yes.
I am a font of knowledge.
Well, I'm glad you're here, so I didn't have to put it in the comments. Anyway, so I read a story with him. So he was walking with Sosai. I don't know if you know this story. So they're walking and they're in this kind of shady part of I don't know if it was in Tokyo, but they're in Japan, shady part of town.
Hang on a minute. Draeger didn't train with train with Sosai.
No, he didn't train with them.
You're not thinking of John Bloom, you?
No. Draeger tells the story. He was out. He did not train with him, but they were walking, and they're just in regular clothes. They're out walking, and there was a bunch of young guys there causing trouble or something, and he said, Sosai just looked at them, and that was it. It just de-escalated. It was his presence, his whatever he did. He just gave off this energy.
Aura.
Yeah. I will double check who the story was, and I'll put it in, make sure I got that right, to give correct props to it. But it spoke volumes about. So there's different ways of de-escalation, and Sensei Steve talks about this too, right? There is, you could talk your way out of something, absolutely, and I think that's good. And I even use de-escalation with even at work and stuff, just trying to calm people down.
Yeah.
However, there's another de-escalation if you're confident about your stuff and you know your shit. Out. Yes, and Sensei Steve talks about this all the time. Like you could walk into a room and people know it's probably better I don't get this going a little higher.
Yeah, I always said you can tell it in people's eyes as well. Yeah. You can tell it in their eyes whether they've been there or whether they can go for real or not. You can just see it in their eyes. And so people always think de-escalation is like, I don't know. De-escalation can be the other way as well, where you scream and shout and snarl and show your teeth so much that the other person is afraid and they back away.
Yeah, that's Jeff Thompson talks about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I call it CAR. When I used to call it the CAR syndrome, a controlled aggressive response. So people used to think, he's fucking psycho. He is on the door looking at me, run into people, and it was a controlled aggressive response. I'm just as scared as them. I'm going into it. I would run into a group of 6 or 7 guys fighting and scream and shout at them and offer them all out and tell them not to move. I'm going to smash his skull open. And they'd all be like, who's this guy? What's wrong with him? And they would be like, all right, fella. And I'd be screaming at them, attack me, come at me, let's do it. And they'd be like, all right, no, we're all right, thanks, all right. And then it would de-escalate it. But, if they did pile on to me, I'd probably take 1 or 2 out, but I'd get a kick in.
So that's Terry Birkett's de-escalation strategy. Go nuts.
It doesn't always work.
But at the end of the day, though, people, we're not advocating violence or anything. People need to try to, when in doubt, run, get the heck out of there.
If you can get away from there, get away.
And again, especially, and you alluded to right at the top and what you went through, and that was a long time ago. Even today, it's much worse. Like And if you do have a background in martial arts, then you're screwed. Like if something goes down and you think you have to defend yourself, and it comes to that, that's going to be a tough sell in a court of law.
Well, in the court, I had to show the jury my hands. I had to show them my knuckles because obviously, you know, my knuckles are enlarged. So I'd have to show them my knuckles. And luckily, they didn't do too much homework on me. So at that time, I'd been the British champion 4 times, the knockdown champion. And they knew that I did karate, and they said, "Oh, you know, have you done?" I've said, "Well, I've won some bits, I've lost some bits, and you know, I train, I do a little bit, I throw a few punches and kicks." So like they didn't really know the extent of my background, but yeah, it came up in court.
That wouldn't be the case today, man. They would. It's different times.
They only got to look at the show. So yeah, and I think emotionally you change. Now, when I was a doorman, and I freely say this now, and I admit it, I was exposed to violence all the time, and you become desensitized to violence. Now, I did 10 solid years in the Valleys and Cardiff City Centre. So, you know, let's say average 2 fights a night, which is quite below average. Sometimes you could have 6, 7, or 8. If you're doing an 8-hour shift on a busy nightclub in the middle of town, there's constant little scuffles and violent altercations, and not just someone, you know, sort of gobbing off, someone throwing a punch at you, or you physically having to remove someone or stop someone.
Stuff's going down. Yeah.
Yeah. So we worked this out, and we were looking at it, and the number's ridiculous. It's sort of something like I've had over 2,000 violent confrontations. You know,
explains so much to me.
but then that's my background. That's what I've done. I've done it. So when I speak about these things, that was my job. Yeah. When I speak about these things, I'm speaking from, you know, the voice of experience. And I was the little guy, which I'm 5'7", which is average height in Wales. So I'm not short by any means. Average height. Let's get that right. And I wasn't a bodybuilder. I wasn't a big roider. I wasn't standing there with muscles like a lot of doormen were. I was the little guy that was just, what's something about him? So when something did happen, my response had to be physical,
right?
Because I didn't have that presence to back them out. Everyone would try and go through me.
And you said you became desensitized to it, and now you're reminding me. I'm going to drop all kinds of big names today. Now Joe Rogan talks about this too. So Joe Rogan, different kind of violence, but he's been around UFC now for how long? How long has he been calling UFC for? God, a long time.
20 years, maybe.
About 20 at least, right? And he was saying that he's become desensitized to violence, where now if something happens, even in real life, if he's just anyway, pass my drink. Like it doesn't faze him, where other people are like, So,
and that's dangerous. That can become dangerous as well. Then.
That's what he said. Actually, sorry, I should preface that. That's what he was saying. It's actually not a good thing. He's become kind of numb to it.
Because like we said, so I was starting to drink my own Kool-Aid as well. You know, you'd be the doorman, and after I'd say, you know, touch wood, I never got bested outside on the door when I was working. No one ever gave me a kicking. No one ever had the better of me when I was working as a doorman. I've lost on the mat plenty of times, but you know, in that arena, and that's not saying because I'm the best there is, but I was good at what I did, and I trained specifically to do it. So I was okay in that sense. So yeah, you know, when you start winning a lot of fights and you knock a lot of people out, you got that aura then about you, and you're like, do you know who I am? Do you know who you're speaking to? Because you can seriously get hurt. And you start to live you'd be like, I call it the God complex. You'd be stood on there, and I'd be speaking to people and like, why are you not looking at me when I'm talking to you? You'd be saying that to like 30, 40-year-old men. You know, when I talk to you, you look at me. And you buy into your own stardom and charisma. And then you would go on.
You probably had to, though, also to survive in the job. You had to have that confidence.
Yeah, you do.
It's a double-edged sword.
if you're in the job too long, I think certainly I came out of it 2008
Okay.
is when I came off the doors. I'm still involved in security, more close protection and event stuff now. But that the door work is different because it's a seedy place. People is drunk. You're in a violent melting pot, waiting for something to go off. Really,
with liquid courage going crazy.
Yeah, everywhere. And normal nice people are completely different people when they're drunk.
Yeah.
When they're out, they do things that they wouldn't normally do, and you've got to deal with that. And we haven't got protective gear like the police. We used to have a black cotton shirt, and a radio. That's what I used to have.
So back to the becoming desensitized, though. Are you still desensitized to it, or has it like?
I'm still desensitized to it in the bit that violence doesn't bother me. Although now I haven't been in a fight for a while because I'm out of that life, and I'm as I've got older and as I've come out of that world, I haven't been involved in any fights.
Yeah,
I was talking about this to a friend the other day. You know, we're like, as a doorman, you're like, right, you need to be in that life. You need to be ready for a fight all the time. And like I say to people, you know, if you're not training for real fights, then you're wasting your time in your training. But you know, I was involved in that. I was thinking about it. I was expecting it. I was ready for it all the time, and I had it. It was there. It would come to me all the time. Now, since being off the door, and I'm not in that situation so much, over the years I've stopped thinking about I'm ready for it. I'm looking for it. I'm looking around, waiting for it to happen.
Not a healthy way to live anyway.
No, it's not. And you know what? I haven't had any trouble for years and years. I haven't had any trouble because I'm not kind of putting that energy out there that this is what I want. So I think it's that double-edged sword.
Yeah, but also, yes, but I think if something happened, God forbid, doesn't, but if something you ran into trouble, I think it's ingrained enough in you that it would kick in.
No questions. It would be done in a second.
So that's how for me, the question that keeps going in my head is that something that can be actually, without that kind of experience, can that be taught? Can that readiness, like if some shit goes down, the fight or flight's going to kick in. It is. It just is. We're human animals, so that's going to kick in. So you either going to shit your pants.
It's got to be in the training. It's got to be in the training. So in our dojo, I put my guys through this stuff. Have you seen the videos on the back street? They put boxing gloves. We'll have two person onto one, just hammering them. So they're in that really out of their comfort zone, in that really horrible situation where they just want it to finish. Right. And they've got to dig deep and they've got to find out what's inside them. I don't think that comes to you, like you watch a film, a guy that's been a computer programmer for 25 years, all his life, all of a sudden he goes and takes out a Mossad hit squad on his own with a screwdriver. And it's like, no, these things don't come so naturally like that. They've got to be trained. So I think if you're in an environment where your instructor is drilling you and pushing you all the time and pressure testing you, yes, it will switch in when you need it. And you might never have a fight in your life. But what I used to say in the dojo is, listen, what we do in you, I'm going to make it 10 times worse in you than it's ever going to be out there. No one's going to come at you out there like I'm coming at you in you. So outside is going to be a walk in the park feel.
And you need, to your point, you got to train for that. So there's nothing wrong with people, I think, going and studying karate or things like that, either as a sport or as a whatever. But if you are
true, you want to do, yeah,
right. But if you're truly training for self-defense, you better be training for self-defense.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Not doing a couple kata a couple times a week and maybe figuring out the moves or something. Drill.
Because I do karate by proxy, I can now defend myself.
Yeah,
and we see it. I look at this in all the YouTube videos, all the Facebook pages, and there's shians, there's high-grade shians that are teaching self-defense stuff. And you're like, I don't think you've ever been exposed to a real fight, because that would never happen like that. They're not going to stand there with their arm holding you while you do some throw. they're going to headbutt you, they're going to punch you, and you can just see it. You can just see that you've never had that experience. And then I think that that's dangerous, because we talk about this a lot. You know, my 12-year-old second Dan in Taekwondo is going to kick your 300-pound ass.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not going to happen. So I think the wrong training gives people a false sense of security. They think they can handle themselves, but when shit goes down for real, they haven't got a clue.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're way over our usual time, but should we call it there?
Yeah, we can call it. I mean, we can talk about this for hours.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what I'm afraid of, and I want to.
It is one of those things as well, as you may never have to use it, but I try to live a life of peace now. So I will avoid situations where there could be a violent confrontation, because I know what ammo I've got. I know what I'm packing. So I know if it does end up in that, there's going to be bodies are going to hit the floor. preferably not mine. But just because I choose now to live a life of peace doesn't mean I forgot how to be violent.
Beautiful. See, what a beautiful way to end things.
Well, there's the saying, isn't it? It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yes. Wuss.
Boom. Cut.